Hello, welcome to this game review. We'll have a look at a short game where White played the English, but he created a big weakness in his center of the position, which Black exploited quite well, and White didn't eventually fill it in and did not get enough counterplay to compensate. So let's take a look. It started as e4, and after g6, White played c4, which already is a bit strange, because if we play e4 on move 1, it usually means we are not a d4 player, which means openings involving the c4 pawn, like the King's Indian or the English, are not really in our repertoire. So here, e4 players and in general, we should just play d4, and there's nothing special about this move order. We just take the whole center, and then White has some small advantage after developing in various different ways. There's a lot of systems against this modern defense type of thing. After c4, now White, at least for the moment, has weakness on c5, which White can fill in by playing knight f3. And before Black establishes control of the d4 square, we can play d4 ourselves and get the Marozzi bind position, which is in general what we're trying to achieve if we put our pawns on e4 and c4. But with White's bad move order, he is not in time to get this position, and already knight f3 is a bad move. White's only chance here to play for something is to get into some kind of Botvinnik type position, for example here, g3 for example, and after Black develops somehow, White can play like this, and eventual f4, and get counterplay like this. But if the knight is on f3, White's only plan is d4, but sadly it's too late. With this move order, White cannot get d4 in, and he cannot play f4 either, so this knight is just badly placed, and now Black has some advantage. a3, so White has this plan of b4, which is the last plan White has at his disposal anymore. d6, bishop e2. It's not a very ambitious way to develop the bishop, probably still the bishop should go to g2, but at this point with the knight on f3, it's not clear if it's even better. Okay, bishop e2, e6, this is one way to develop for Black. d3, Black is not allowing d4, rook b1. Here, White could play bishop e3 to just play d4, and if Black allows it, White will be doing quite well, because again, he will get rid of his weak square on d4, he will get the Marozzi bind position, and he would be doing quite well. But Black can play knight d4 here, which is the problem, and again Black fills in this gap on d4, and White is not doing too great, as he does not have any obvious counterplay here. At rook b1, Black castles, cannot play b4 because of the hanging knight, so White plays queen c2, knight d4. So Black understands that if White gets to just play b4 for free, White will maybe equalize. But knight d4, White has to take basically. Then he puts his knight on d1, but the knight on d1 kind of has no future. The alternative is not very fun either on a2, but perhaps from here it can at least go to b3, which could target this pawn on d4, for example, b4, bishop b2, knight c1, knight b3 could be a possible maneuver. But knight d1. Now Black plays d5, which is not very necessary. Black could just play his usual stuff on the king side with f5, and White's pieces don't really make much sense, and they're not very well coordinated, though he's not exactly losing yet. Here f3, which is a strange move, but I guess it's kind of fine. In general, White should look for ways to get his pieces out, maybe bishop d2, though Black does get a connected passed pawn on d4, but eventually the knight could blockade it on d3, and White could eventually try to get some kind of counterplay when he has developed his pieces fully. After f3, bishop d7, b4, and then c5. Now things start to go downhill, because c5 is now a good lever for Black's pawn with b6, and there will be a weakness on c5, and as soon as the weaknesses are created, White will very likely not be doing well. because his pieces are not ready for the fight in the center. Instead, he should again develop his pieces, giving black the connected passed pawn, but the knight will find a very nice square on d3, which will make the pawn not very useful, and eventually white can push with f4 or c5 and get some play, and he should be doing quite well. After c5, queen c7, a4. Again, a4 doesn't really make much sense. White needs this pawn on a3 to defend b4, which is there to defend c5. Instead, again, white should prioritize his terrible pieces, maybe develop the bishop or the knight. But here after b6, now the position starts to crumble. Again, white should get his pieces out. He plays bishop a3, which doesn't really help his position, because here after queen a5 there's no one defending a4. White plays knight b2, which is natural enough, but the knight is terrible here, and more importantly, there's a simple tactic which black finds with queen c3, which attacks the bishop and the queen cannot be taken, because after this the knight's only square is d1, after which there will be a fork with c2. So here black wins quite simply at the end of the game here, and it goes to show that white's handling of his pieces was so bad that a tactic arose quite randomly, and that's what happens usually. Tactics arise from bad positions, well, unless we're the ones on the good side of the tactics. But here, white's only chance was probably to move the queen somewhere, or just give up the pawn on a4, maybe attack the queen, get rid of some pieces, knight f2, and play a pawn down, maybe rook a1. Black still has doubled pawns. We might get some type of counterplay, but there's not too much to hope for. So in general, white should have played the opening a lot better. Already the second move was kind of strange. There's no reason not to take the whole center. In general, if we think we see the best move, we should make it. I don't think logically c4 can be better than d4. And if we see d4, we play d4.